Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams. Thank you so much for listening to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast today. Super excited to serve another member of my community one-on-one and then let you listen in so that you can learn and overcome mindset issues, overcome obstacles that are holding you back, maybe get that amazing piece of business information that you need to start building, growing online business, to change your family's future, to flip your life forever. Really excited about my guest today. His name is Keanu Trujillo. I had to practice that a little bit. I got to meet Keanu, man. I was down in Florida at an event, and he was with some other people in a meeting I was at, and we got to go to dinner together. We got to talk, and just a super good dude. Awesome stuff, man. Super ambitious, super motivated. Has an amazing one-on-one coaching practice where he helps entrepreneurs train their teams. He brings personal development to people's teams, and he focuses a lot on the Enneagram, which is a really popular personal development tool out there to kind of understand your personality type and how you relate to other people. And of course, when you hang out with me long enough, y'all, you know you're going to start a membership. You know you're going to try to go out and get 100 people to pay you $50 a month, make 60 grand a year, maybe 200, make 120,000. And once I told him about the membership model, told him about communities, Keanu jumped all in, man. He went home. He redid his entire business plan for the future. He went home and he joined the Flipped Lifestyle community. He's been taking massive action. And we are recording this actually in August of 2021. He is one day away from launching his membership site out into the world. He's got 40 people on a waiting list, and he's about to have his founding members start building that thing, start growing that thing, and start making things happen. So today we're going to talk to Keanu about his launch plan. If you want to know how to launch a membership, we're going to talk all about that today. We're also going to talk about how to grow the membership after it's launched using his podcast. I'm going to help Keanu with some traffic strategies that he can use for his podcast. I'm going to show him how we are actually growing our podcast right now. And I'm going to give him 2 or 3 strategies on how he can go out and get more people to listen to his show. You can use these same strategies, whether you're a podcaster, a blogger, a YouTuber, whatever channel you want to grow, you need to listen to the podcast today. We're also going to talk about a big mindset issue that a lot of people have. How do you go from one-on-one relationships, from building your business one person at a time, to building that same kind of trust and relationship with a large group of people? Going from one to many is the key to scale, not only to scale your income, but to also scale your impact out in the world. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it today. This was a fun conversation with Keanu. I know you're going to love it too. So wherever you're listening, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sams. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again today. Super excited to hang out and talk to another amazing member of the Flipped Lifestyle community so we can help them start, build, and grow an online business that can change their family's future, change their family tree forever. And I'm super excited, man. I love it when I get to hang out and podcast with someone I've got to hang out with in real life and even break bread with at dinner, man. Super excited to welcome Keanu Trujillo. I've been practicing that all morning, Keanu. Welcome to the podcast, bro.
Thanks for having me, Shane. I appreciate you.
In Southeast Kentucky, we got to practice. We got to work on our names and our words, man, because we got this mountain accent that can butcher. You know what I heard one time though? I heard that everybody makes fun of us from Kentucky or Appalachia because we talk like with a different kind of Southern accent. You know, there's like a drawl to it, but there's also this kind of twang, like the bluegrass music. And I heard one time that there was a what do you call someone who studies languages? Is it a linguist or an anthropologist or something?
I think he'd be a linguist. Well, we'll go with that.
Let's go with linguist. And I was reading this thing where they think that Appalachian Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee dialects may be the closest thing still to Elizabethan English.
Wow.
Because we were isolated in the hollers and in the mountains and in these valleys. And they think it actually like this. They think this is what Elizabethan English may have actually sounded like. Isn't that crazy?
That'd be interesting. I could just see you walking around Elizabethan England.
One of those
Shane
big
Sams.
things on my neck. One of those big giant, like one of those big neck things. And what were those pants that had the puffy legs and they were tied at the bottom? You know what I'm saying?
But did they have the same language like y'all? you know,
they better have said, I think we invented y'all. I think we actually added that later. So that's good. All right. Enough about me, enough about how I talk, man. Keanu, tell everybody about you. Tell them about your background, in your life, your family, things like that, where you're from. And tell us a little bit about what you're going to be trying to do in your online business.
Well, speaking of unique dialects, I had to work to rid myself of mine. I'm from northern New Mexico originally, where every vowel is elongated. So I had to work on my language and being a communicator, working on that for some time. But from northern New Mexico, quick background, I started in corrections at 18. I went to one semester of college to play football, and I realized college just wasn't the path that I wanted to take. So I went to corrections, then into Army National Guard, and then law enforcement simultaneously with the Army National Guard at 21. Then I went active duty with the Army National Guard for a time. I did some operations there on the border in New Mexico, and then went into recruiting. And from there, I found Christ, and I decided that I wanted to make my way towards ministry, but I didn't know what that looked like. So I left active duty and I went into financial services for a time. Then I finally went into ministry, and then finally built my business. And really that background really leads me to where I am now. I realized that in all of those roles, I really was drawn towards people, from corrections, law enforcement, military, financial services, ministry. It was always about serving people and meeting their needs, meeting them where they're at and serving them. But I didn't really have entrepreneurship or business ownership modeled for me. Where I come from, entrepreneurships is dime bags or Herbalife. That's just what people know. And if you don't come from a business background, then you're not shown or anticipated or expected to start a business. So in time, I realized that, hey, I really have a gift for developing people. And I think that people will pay me for this. And sure enough, people did start paying me for it and started a business from there. So now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina with my wife and 3-year-old English Mastiff, no kids. And we've just been building our business for the last 2 years.
Cool, man. So tell me about the business itself. And it is funny. First of all, thank you for your service, man. Appreciate that always. And it's cool to some people will look at the tasks they do or the jobs they do, and they don't really see the underlying, I don't know if it's a why, but more like, God-given skill, talent, ability that they're like to recognize that you could serve other people. That's pretty cool because there's servers, there's leaders, there's different things. And it's like, man, to be able to get that and say, hey, I can turn this into a business. That's a blessing in and of itself. So tell me about your business now. What does it look like? It's a coaching practice, correct?
Sure. Yes. It's ultimately a professional development company. Okay. And it started, like I had mentioned, part of my role, the church that I work for here in North Carolina is Elevation Church. And so part of my role was developing leaders there to lead volunteer teams. And of course, some of those volunteer leaders, many of them being leaders, led and owned businesses. So they wanted to bring me in and said, hey, I really like what you're doing, just developing for the church. Can you do this for my company? And so little by little, word started to get around. I started developing some local companies here in the Charlotte area, and then decided that, hey, I think it's time to start my business. We'll talk a little bit more about my deeper why later. But in getting out there, I was coaching couples. Honestly, I was coaching anyone, Shane, that saw value in spending time with me. I was coaching couples, individuals.
Well, you say yes, then I'm your coach. That's pretty much how it's going, right?
That's it. I go into every conversation, whether I'm at the coffee shop or a podcast like this, thinking that I want to add value to someone's life in that moment. And I began to realize that was a gift. And so I was picking up everyone, but then I really decided to start focusing on what God was really calling me to and honing my niche, and realized that it was with businesses. And so I started doing coaching with business teams, doing workshops, speaking engagements with businesses, particularly around a tool that I like to use called the Enneagram, which I think is the best personality tool you can use. More on that later. But that was really my in. The Enneagram was different. It set itself apart. People were seeing the impact of it. One person tell another, of course, how businesses are built. But then I started to realize, and I had to get into a little bit of self-awareness, and you actually changed my mind on communities. I always wanted to start a community, but I think so many people out there have communities not to serve people, but really to have a captive audience and then to shoot fish in a barrel. So they'll say, get our community. Yes. Yeah, man. But it's really more about, hey, come to a place where I could just continue to sell to you. So I thought, I don't want that. I'm not going to do that. But when I met you, you changed my mind and really set the model for what we wanted to create. We wanted to create ultimately development opportunities for any and every business, because most businesses don't have development directors or dedicated people that are dedicated to your development. Yeah. And so I wanted to create that at scale. And that was really my gifting and what I'd find myself gravitating towards in all of my careers, a role where I'd be developing people underneath me or leading people, and more on the personal side. So what we've done now is we've created a community. True Strategy is now no longer a company. True Strategy is a place. And it's a place where we teach you and support you to attract, great people, make them better, and keep them around. And the way we do that is by focusing on key interpersonal skills in areas such as awareness, communication, boundaries, delegation, conflict resolution, all of those things in building people. And our promise to business owners is, hey, we'll build your people, you build your business. Most business owners,
you basically are like you're like the virtual personal development director for companies. Like they can come in and you help train their people and stuff like that. Now, Elevations, where is that? Kevin Furtick's church? Is that where that is?
Yeah, Stephen Furtick.
Stephen Furtick, that's right. Yeah. Stephen Furtick. I know about him. I've not followed him, but did you go there like while this rise of? I know that church is huge and it's really impactful. They got a lot of YouTube videos and I know their marketing is rock solid. It's amazing to like look at. But were you there when he got there, or when all this started like exploding or anything, or like did you kind of see this rise, or did you come after he was already there?
No, much after. It started in 2006, and from the beginning, it was like a rocket ship. And I had only joined in 2000.
I can't believe I just called Stephen Furtick Kevin Furtick on air. So,
that's all right.
Sorry, Stephen. My bad, bro. That's okay. People call me Shane Sims all the time. I've been called Sean Sims, and I think half of my listenership thinks my name is actually Sam instead of Shane Sams. So
Sam Shanes.
So hopefully Furtick's not mad at us or anything like that. That's pretty cool to go to such a dynamic church though, with such a huge online footprint.
Well, I'm a big action kind of guy, massive action. So when I was going into ministry, I'd been listening from New Mexico to his messages. I did like his aggressiveness and intensity to see people reached. And so I felt a prompting, very long story. I won't share that, but to come and join, I said, if I'm going to go into full-time ministry, I'm going to go big. I'm going to join the fastest growing church in American history and just go for it. Yeah. So I applied on a Tuesday and they had us on a plane on a Friday. And 2 weeks later, we were in North Carolina. So big action, massive
big action.
Part of my personality.
We're going to take big action on the online business so far. So just to recap, you've got this coaching practice. I love the mission. I love professional development. I love professional development for our people. We've been in a massive, getting these live events and things that we're doing right now with these workshops and seminars and big stage events. We've been doing a lot of that on the back end recently. But one of our core values that I really try to stick to, I heard this guy on Joe Rogan one time talk about how law enforcement needed to spend like 10 to 15% of their time training. Like if you work 40 hours, 5 hours should be training, right? And I really thought about that deeply after I heard him say that. And I was like, well, if our law enforcement should do that, shouldn't like we all do that, right? And so I actually, we really try to plan our people's work weeks to 5 to 35 hours. Like if we can get them, and of course there's sprints where you're doing 50 and there's times where you might do 33, right? There's all kinds of ebb and flow in how you work. Yeah. But I love leaving that extra 5 hours and then buying training or buying books or buying things for personal development for our team in their specific areas. Like we don't like read a book as a company. Like we don't do anything like that because that's not helpful. The book I need to read is not the same that my assistant needs to read or the same that my systems person needs to read or my sales guys, whatever. Right. But I love leaving that little break in there somewhere for a couple hours and then everyone being a little bit intentional about what they're filling that up with, because if you can sharpen the axe, the tree comes down quicker. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
And you got to work that in there. So I love the mission. I love what you're doing. And we had talked a little bit about how even though the mission's amazing and the impact is incredible, it is time for dollars. Like that's what you're doing right now, right? So we're talking about maybe getting that time for dollars thing into some kind of membership community where you can spread that out a little bit, not only to impact more people, but to free you up to do other things. So is that where you're at right now? You're in this time for dollars model and you want to do something to kind of expand the scale of your business?
Well, that's exactly what it was. You know, in leadership, a big part of leadership is delegation and understanding that if it depends on you, it ends with you. And so that's where I was realizing that in starting my business, I'm a first generation business owner, first generation follower of Christ. So my deeper rooted why is breaking chains of spiritual and financial poverty. There's about 3 people in my family, all of it. I mean, extended cousins, auntie, baby mama, all of it that own homes. So that's just kind of my background. And so I believe that I need to create this legacy, and this is but a vapor. I'm only one step in building true strategy. And so I realized that I can't do that trading time for money. So that's where I was really challenged to build something that's more sustainable. And so that's why we've been over the last, really since we met you, as fate would have it or God would have it, a week later, I was meeting with my team and we were solidifying the direction of exactly what we were going to do.
That's what happens, man, when you hang out with me too long. Everybody knows
was so bought in.
You're starting a membership if you're with me. If I can get you trapped in a room with me for about an hour and a half, something's happening and you're going to have 100 people paying you $50 a month. Let's go. Right.
I had never been so happy to spend money. I honestly, and
that's awesome.
You gave me my value in just the orientation product. I didn't even get to the actual blueprint yet. Just the orientation. I thought this is gold. That was worth the money. I'm completely.
So everybody listening, what are you waiting for, man? I did not pay Keanu to say that, man.
I'm telling you.
That's what I'm telling you, man. That's what we do. And I going back to what you said too about like a lot of people want community as just a way to get more money and extract money out of people or get them in a place where you can sell them. And it is true that your best customers are people that have given you money before. We all know that. That's fine. But that's really not like we have this like grassroots go wide impact strategy. Mm-hmm. And what we love about the membership model where you're doing monthly or quarterly or annuals, however you're doing it, where you're having people commit to the community itself. And that's also kind of our all-in strategy. Like our entire product lives inside the membership, right? The reason we do that is because the more people you connect in that chain, the more likely those people in the chain are going to succeed. So that this model is not just to get more money out of people. Like we don't really sell a lot of other things. Of course, we want people to stay forever, as long as they can. But man, every time we add another person to the community, we bring in new perspective, new wisdom, new impact. And like Keanu and Shane can coach what they coach, but we don't have a monopoly on all information. I still am seeking mastery in the membership world. I study every day new tactics and strategies and retention and memberships and whatever it is. Like I will never have a monopoly or all the information. I just happen to have a little more than people who haven't done it as much. Yeah. But every time I add someone new, man, they bring something new to the table. They can help each other. And you realize that I can help one business or I can help 100 businesses. And then the ripple from that will be all of their customers and their people and their team. And that's why we do the membership model. It's super awesome. It's super profitable. It's incredible. It's super stable. It's super predictable. But the impact that you can have on a wider scale just cannot be matched with anything else you do. Like you can talk about courses, but how many courses have you ever bought you didn't take? You know what I mean?
That's right.
When you put people together, great things happen, whether it's at church or in the workplace or in your membership community.
Well, and that's a problem that I have is I have a problem where I love relationships. So when I work with people, I'm very vested in their growth and interested in what happens next. But one, they can't afford to continue to hire me, right? If I come in and do a session or whatever, and I don't want to have to continue to sell them again just to build the relationship. But I also can't spend the time that I really need to continue to invest in the relationship. So that's where the community really just brought it all home for me in that and building the relationships and encouraging them to support each other and lead each other. For, like I mentioned, for example, one of the things that came to mind was with using the Enneagram. Basically different personalities. Let's say you're leading one type of personality. You can go into, one of these forums and ask, hey, I'm leading this kind of person. Those of you that are of that same personality, help me out, right?
Yes.
Like, that alone is valuable. So everything else just on top of that, helping people help each other.
Yeah, man. And like when you really get in the membership model, what's cool is you realize like, I know people build teams that have all kinds of businesses like coaching and other things like that, but it's usually still like, I don't know, it still feels like you're the one that has all the responsibility. You know what I'm saying? When you're running a coaching business.
Yeah.
The great thing about the membership, what I'm really discovering now as we expand our team, like I just hired a guy yesterday that's going to be leading some phone efforts for us. I'm hiring a new, we're actually going to call it, we had a community manager. We actually still have a community manager, but we're actually going to call this next role our community coach.
Wow.
And we're going to hire, we really want to put inside the community where anyone at any time can schedule a 15-minute next steps call and figure out like an answer to a question, anything else. We're going to start building out this team under this community coach where even our people in the community can get like one call a month where you get stuck and you get to call in and say, hey, just here's what I'm doing. It takes 10 minutes to usually get people unstuck. Right.
Love it.
So like I found that these people are better at it than me. Like I know people listen to me on the podcast and think I have all the answers and all that, but this is finally edited. Sometimes I'm stumped, right? I can hire people that can do that better than me. I can hire people that can lead Q&As better than me. I can hire people that can lead my forums better than me, make YouTube videos better than me, podcasts better than me. I have a long-term vision of even finding someone that can podcast better than I can, right? And like that the membership model has unlocked that in a lot of ways for us because we can really, really fine tune our delegation and how we split up tasks, and that you can't do in a one-on-one way. You need a unicorn to have one-on-one coaches, but like I can have someone who's an expert in marketing only answer the marketing questions. I can have an expert that in podcasting only answer the podcast questions, right? And we can really fine tune how we serve our people. Absolutely. And also, like it's like when you have that community, I can't tell you how many times our community members answer each other's questions before we can even get to them, and we're tapping into this collective knowledge that doesn't exist in any other business model. That actually is just cheating. It's just cheating at life and business when you're inside one of these communities, and it blows my mind every single minute of every single day when I see this. And I'll tell you another thing for everybody listening out there. We're starting to actually we're going to source from our community. Like I'm going to our community to try to hire these roles first. It's awesome. Because if I can bring people up who are already in the fold, you know what I mean? Like, and already love the flipped lifestyle, love the brand, love the movement, and can do the job. It's just going to that's a 10X magnifier for all the people who get to reap the benefit of that. Amen. Like on the backside, Amen.
Well, Shane, when you're ready to implement professional development on the interpersonal side of things, give me a call.
The trusted expert in the Enneagram session, Keanu. All right, let's build your business first before I start incorporating you into my. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Well, for example, some people, they have those roadblocks or the things that they're stuck on externally, and it's not an external 100%. Problem; it's an internal problem. It's always that, and that's why I want to plug you for a moment. You're so much more than the membership guy. You're a business builder, and so that's why I love that Flipped Lifestyle is going in that direction to be more holistic in building businesses, because people may think they're joining Flipped Lifestyle to get a membership guidance on building a membership, and it's so much more. It's all around 360 business growth.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, the membership's where we plant our flag, but it's a big country we planted it on. It's like the moon, man. You know what I'm saying? We planted our flag on the moon. Well, all right, let's talk about you and your next steps toward transitioning this. I think you're going to be able to build this really quickly. I know you guys have been doing it in the background and things like that, but what kind of internal fears are holding you back right now, right? Like coaches need coaches, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
What's holding you back? I know it is a different mindset shift to go into this world compared to a one-on-one world where you're going to scale, going to the masses. I always talk about how it's like Jesus, like talking to the disciples, like one-on-one or two-on-one. And then he got up on that mountain and talked to 5,000, you know what I mean? Like there had to be a big difference there in messaging and in things like that when he first did that. So what's your kind of holdback right now? What's kind of stopping you from just going all in on this, or maybe slowing you down?
Well, in context, I'll give you what we're doing now and what we've built. And then that really sheds light on exactly what the tensions are. So what we've done is we had begun to build, and we were supposed to soft launch August 16th and really open the doors to a group of very close entrepreneurs. I mean, we have the whole gamut because we do really want to see that. We know professional development is something everyone needs. We have a very target audience. I had realized it through self-awareness. The coach on self-awareness. One part of that was my best and highest paying clients, because they're not always the same. Best and highest paying brought me in to develop their teams, and they were developed in the process. So I began to see, hey, given my age and my experience, I don't want to spend time necessarily directly with executives. There's plenty of executive coaches out there, life coaches, whatever. Hey, I want to build your team. Think of me like you said, a bolt-on member of your team. So with that, we brought in people from best-selling authors to Fortune 100 executives to the local coffee shop to construction, company owners. So we really have a gamut of 40 people that we've invited in, calling our founders. So on August 20th, I know this is going to come out much later. August 20th, we are sending them the mark the calendar. They've already committed to being founders, already brought in. They know the vision, the mission, because I'm a belly to belly sales kind of person, which is going to get to my attention. 40 people, they're locked in. They're going to be our founders. On August 27th, we're letting them in the doors, getting intentional feedback. I've given them access to my calendar to block off 30 minutes to walk through their experience as we launch with everything that they've seen inside of it. And then we plan on September 3rd opening publicly, because you've changed my language. Hey, it's not a launch. It's just open the doors and let people
open the doors.
In, right?
Come on in. We're going to be here forever. You might as well start shopping here.
That's yes. Right. And so that's where we're going to be. And I have a partner. He is actually from the Elevation marketing team. I've recruited him and brought him on, and he is going to be running our marketing efforts. And then I also brought on another person, because building true strategy is not about Keanu's place to coach people. It's about a place for people to grow. And I actually want to be just one of the contributors. I want to bring in other experts and professionals to teach and to coach and to develop from my relationship. So it's a platform to bring those people in. So I also just brought on a member of the team who worked 10 years at Elevation. He led a campus and launched a campus for 6 years as a campus pastor. He was actually one of my supervisors and helped develop me. Now he's working for me and he's going to be pouring into that community as well. So all of that to say, I feel really confident in the model where I don't feel as confident because I've never experienced it before. I have about 580 people on my list right now, but every single one of them I've met, talked to, coached, or impact personally. So it's a small number. When you think about list size, it's a large number when you think about I've actually directly touched these people.
Which is great because that's probably going to get your founding membership to 100 fast, because if you know them all, think about them all, they know the value you bring. So that's actually a really cool unfair advantage. You know what I'm saying? You have coming out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I really am praying so and believing so as well, because relationships matter to me. The side where the tension is actually really letting go and saying, hey, I just need to focus on creating content and allowing the marketing side just to do its thing. Because I've always been, and even now, right now, I've shifted my focus. I'm not taking any private coaching anymore as we focus on the community, but I'm still doing high ticket group workshops and speaking things. So that's where my focus is, because that's still going to be a part of what I do.
100%. You don't have to do. Yeah, it's not an either or. Like people, I just think that it's like a roof and the foundation is not an either or, right? Yeah. Like you need them both, but the foundation, if it's a membership with 1,000 members or something, it makes that roof. That roof's going to hang on to something. You know what I mean? So you need them both. It's just, what's your foundation? That's kind of
exactly. And so to give basically clarity to then the tension. The tension is we brought on someone to run social ads. We brought on someone to run Google ads. Both we stole from the Elevation marketing team. So they're going to run all those things. I know. And then my partner, the CMO, he is entirely capable. I've just not seen it. I've not seen yet. We've not run any kind of ads. We've not done anything like that. So to actually just say, hey, God and digital world, I'm going to
you know what I think the real tension is? I think it's like this is funny because I've seen this happen before, like especially with people who do like value team and are building teams. Like, so you've got this team. There's not a trust issue with the people. It's not even really a belief. I don't even think it's really a belief in, will this work? I don't think that's actually the tension either. What I hear is the tension is, I've met all these people. How can we possibly get strangers or new people or let's say the marketing team does go get the next 100 emails. I don't know those people. Like, how are you going to build that relationship? How are we going to possibly get them to trust us? How are we going to, that's what it feels like you're saying without saying it. You know what I'm saying? Is that accurate?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, these people don't know me. They don't like me. They don't trust me yet. Like, how are they possibly going to like me?
I know, man.
Because I know if I get in front of you, if you don't, and this is probably going to be very, very cocky. But if I get in front of you and we get to spend some time together and you don't like me, I think something's severely wrong with you.
And I can vouch for that because me and Keanu got to hang out and have dinner together at an event we were at. And I was like, dude, you got to get in my community. You got to jump on the podcast. We got to hang out, man. All right. So let me address that real quick. Okay. So there's a couple ways. And actually the blueprint is kind of laid out perfectly in the way to answer this question.
Okay.
The first thing you have to do is know your target avatar and your customer, which you're going to be able, you could define that if we were talking about it. Like, and also you have to remember, like, most of the things that we say to each other in real life or online are pretty much the same from person to person that we talk to. Like the 80% of, I'm a guy with a wife, I have a little girl, I have a little boy. Like, these things that we say to each other to get to know each other at the very beginning of relationships are often the same. It's kind of like taking evergreen content and creating it. We can probably teach our methods in 80% through video courses. And then there's about a 20% gap where we got to have Q&As and there's nuance for people's businesses. So that's where the relationships in your membership and your businesses usually live, is that 20%, the nuance of each person's story. But most of the things that we say are to each other to become friends, or even it's just same thing. This same batching mentality, this same evergreen content mentality that we do with our content and our business and things we teach can actually be applied directly to relationships. Like, you can handle the warming up and the getting the knowing of in podcasting and emails, right? Like, I am very open on this podcast does well, I think, because Jocelyn and I from the very beginning have always been a complete open book. with our audience. We told everyone from the beginning, the first words out of our mouth when we recorded the very first episode of Flipped Lifestyle was, "Hey, y'all." Like, you know what you're getting into, man, from the first two words out of our mouth. And we have always been really super open with our story. We've talked about how we value marriage. We talk about crazy things our kids do and opportunities that we give our kids that we never could have afforded in any other way besides online business. And we also talk a lot about like the failures in our life. Like, I do this email. I probably write it about once a month. It's called 5 Fails Friday. Because I let the failures stack up before I send that out. Right. Yeah. And I talk about failures in parenting and marriage and business and in life. And that openness and that 80% of like, if me and you sat down for coffee and I was like, "Oh, let me tell you what my son did last week. It's hilarious." Right. Or, hey, let me tell you where we went last week. We were down in Tampa, Florida, man. It was rained every day. Right. Like, these things are the same things you would say to everybody you sat down with for a cup of coffee, but we just assign them so much value because they happen one-on-one. If you'll just have that same conversation one to many, people will get to know you just like people one-on-one. And once you embrace that, it becomes so much easier, man. Like, wow. I meet people. I was at Podcast Movement 2 weeks ago speaking, and people would come up to me and were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, one girl came up to me. What was her name? I can't remember her name. She came up to me and she was like, "I'm fangirling a little bit. I'm freaking out a little bit." And she was telling me a story that I had told like 6 months ago on my podcast, and she was telling me about all these things that she had listened to on my podcast, and she literally said, like, "I just feel like I know you." Wow. And I'm like, "You do. You probably spent 600 hours with me in your earbuds, right?" Yeah. So that's really what you have to adopt as you go into this one-to-many model. Is people are still going to get to know you as long as you're authentic. People are still going to love you if you're intentional about how you email them things about your background. And then once you lay that foundation, when they finally get to stay with you, when they finally come to a webinar, when they finally come into your community, that part of the relationship is already built. Like, you've already built them all the way up to I know and like Keanu. Then you've got to know and like them and serve them and love them well inside the community. That's the reciprocity that goes back, right? They know you, now you know them, now you serve each other, and now you're friends. Yeah. But defining a customer avatar is really important in that, because it lets you know what you need to talk about, so that you can build that relationship, through your lips, through your fingertips, through your blog, and through your podcast. Yeah. And man, I'm telling you, people come up to me and I had a guy named Jason Brown one time. We were at a party we were at a live event. There was like a little party on the side. Some friends of ours were having. We went there. This dude just walked up to me, man, and he just like reached out and grabbed me and hugged me like he was congratulating me for having a baby or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. And I was like, "Hey, man." He goes, "Shane and Jocelyn." I was like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "Jason Brown, man." And he had heard our story, and it had inspired him to grow his online business. Like, our story was literally the catalyst for, if they can do it, I can do it. But he knew me. He knew everything about me. And then I got to know him. Now we're great friends. So don't be afraid of that, man. You're going to be able to just be you, know who you're talking to and want to talk to. That relationship's going to build, man, just like those one-on-ones. You're going to feel that love from your audience,
That's the greatest takeaway is just talking as if I'm talking one-to-one in the one-to-many via email, social, whatever it may be. That there I can take and I can apply it right now. Thank you.
Dude, you know what I imagine when I'm doing these podcasts? Like, sometimes I'll break the fourth wall a little bit and I'll be like, for everybody, listen, if I really want to drive home a point, and I think people could probably do. I always imagine that I'm driving a car and you're in the front seat with me because you're my guest today. And then I always feel like the people that are with us are just, it's another person in the back seat, and we're just all driving somewhere together, and we're having a conversation. And we're like, I always settle in and just kind of get zen a little bit before we start and be like, all right, it's me and Keanu and the audience. And the audience is just a person. And I know that people probably feel like they get lost in these conversations because it is a one-on-one conversation. We just all aren't together at the same time.
I love that. And that is true. So authentic, from this conversation to our conversation at dinner, our conversations throughout the day when we met in Tampa a few months ago. Honestly, if we would have just hit record on any one of those, it would have been a tremendous value. Same guy. And you're always just bringing the same value. So more value.
All right, so I think that's good. We can talk more about that in the forums community, but I think that makes sense for you. And I know you're going to knock it out of the park because you do a great job on your podcast, and that'll transition easy. But what's the what's holding us back in the business side? Like, where is that rub? And for growing this thing, for building this thing, for launching this thing on the 20th, is anything like, oh gosh, here we go, we're going to open the doors? Like, what about the actual business side of stuff?
Well, the actual business side, the more practical side of things, honestly, I've been just so blessed with a great team that is really carrying it forward. I don't, as far as launching it, there's no hesitation. Honestly, I wanted to launch it a month ago.
Chomping at the bit.
With this new person that we just brought on, we had a meeting last Friday, and he said, "Hey, and I don't know, you can edit this out if you want." He said, "How often is your butt just entirely puckered?" And I was like,
I will not edit that out at all.
I said, well, now that you said that, probably not as much as it should be, because it's just not. And,
right. You're not nervous.
I think a lot of that comes like with the faith. When I wanted to launch my business or go full-time and leave my full-time job and my benefits and all of that, while my wife is still in school, mind you, I wanted to leave 6 months before I actually left, but that was all ambition. And I'm a type 8 on the Enneagram, a challenger. If anyone knows anything about that, very intense. Like I said, big action, aggressive, like let's just do it, fire, ready, aim. And I knew that my ambitions got me in trouble. So I wanted to wait for God on this one. And so 6 months later, it was June 2020, amidst the pandemic, I felt God saying, and I really did. I was reading in Jeremiah, and essentially what I had taken from it was, these are my plans, and I am going to see that they're fulfilled. There's a part in Jeremiah 1 where he says that I am seeing that my plans are fulfilled through your eyes. Right. Yeah. And so that's when I had realized, these are his plans. I just have to be faithful to continue to walk forward in it. And if this right now, being on this podcast, connecting with you, finding you, being in your community, David and Jason Benham, I was helping them build their company, which led me to you. All of these connections that I have no business being in the room with, that is just a continued testament of God's faithfulness. And we've been down to the wire several times, not being able to, like, which bill can we not pay this week? Sure. You know what I mean? And, still being there, but I just feel that faithfulness that God is going to see it through. And even if we launch and all of a sudden it's, okay, it's not what we expected. We failed 5-6 times with some massive things that we thought were going to be awesome. And we've taken something that's helped to add to it moving forward.
Oh yeah. You always go quick. That's what people, we had some people last week. I had a person come up to me and they were talking about that. Like, well, I'm not totally for sure if this is the best idea for me and my business. And I just looked at him and I said, it's probably not. Like, the first thing you do is not going to work perfectly the way you think it's going to work. If it does, God bless. Hey man, strike. The iron is hot. You know what I'm saying? I used to say forks in the fire instead of the iron is hot. I don't know why I used to say that, but strike when the iron is hot, man. You know what I'm saying? And like, go for it. But like, every time you do it, you learn how to do it faster, better, at a bigger level. And once you do it, you can see why it didn't work. Until you do it, you're guessing. Yeah. So just getting stuff out there, man, is critical for being able to figure out how to actually make it come together.
Absolutely. And I don't want to, Shane is not paying me for this. I'll send you, an invoice later. But truly, honestly, before I found Flipped Lifestyle and just the way you lay it out in the blueprint, I knew that I wanted to do it and I was confident in wanting to do it. I wasn't confident in how. So I was very nervous then. And the Flipped Lifestyle blueprint, really, like, you've removed all obstacles. The only thing that can get in your way is, sickness or your mindset. Like, that's right. Shane has removed the physical.
And we have 12 mindset videos of the biggest ones that get people play. If you need to go watch those too, right? Yeah, man. That's all. So now you're going to grow this with a podcast though, right? Like, that's what you're working on, is a podcast is going to be your core content, correct?
Podcast is my core content. Russell Brunson says in Traffic Secrets, find one platform and focus on it. I didn't know that at the time, but I knew I liked to speak and I felt like I'd been gifted in communication. So I started my podcast almost a year ago. We just recorded our 60th episode. We just launched our 53rd. So I've just been staying faithful to it and knowing that, hey, most people don't do this. I didn't know the statistic you shared with me earlier.
Yeah. Most people, I think it's like 90% of podcasts stop or something crazy high before their 10th episode. Like, they just bomb and they just go out, nobody listens, and they don't want to put the work in anymore, and they quit. Right. So just making it to 60, man, when you get to 100, you're in rare air, baby. Like, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
So that's where I want to be primarily. I'm focusing a bit more in building Instagram as well. I have a decent following there, like 1,400 people. And I just try to think of it like 1,400 people. If I could put 1,400 people in a room right now, that'd be a lot of people.
You wouldn't be able to get them in your house. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That 1,400 is almost as much as the town I grew up in. So
for real,
that's where I'm thinking just, all right, I'll build those things, but primarily, yes, it's the podcast because of the self-awareness of gifting and passion and just energy as well.
Yeah. I always tell people too, like, because everybody kind of can relate to this. Like, imagine a packed high school gym for graduation or a big basketball game. Like, that's about 1,000 people. Like, imagine that many people following you around. Like, you were walking down the street Forrest Gump style, and you had that many people. They just walked out of the gym with you and said, "We're going with you to the car." Right? Like, I mean, that's incredible. And but people look at other audiences, like, and I do this too. Like we have a great sized audience, but we're not like at Pat Flynn level or John Lee Dumas, 100 million people downloading the show or anything. Like, it's easy to do that, but then you take your eye off. Like, man, if 100 people are paying attention to you, that's a lot of people. Like, you can build a strong business out of 100 members, right?
Yeah.
So you got this thing.
That is attention, and something I did want to ask you about on the physical side or more practical side of it is, I've not really done anything to grow my podcast. I'll post it, and I've had some awesome guests on that they'll post it as well with some larger followings. We'll have Auntie Ann Ann Byler from Auntie Anne's Pretzels on in September.
Who is the sweetest, most loving, amazing woman I've ever met in my entire. Me and Jocelyn, we had Auntie Ann. We were at an event. We had her sandwich between us in the back of a Suburban. Wow. And she was just laughing, and it was so funny, man. Like, she was like amazing. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm excited to meet her. And, I've not awesome, met her yet. I just shot my shot on Instagram. I just said, hey, I'd love to interview, and that's what I do. We've done a lot. And now I have a social media manager, and she'll do that for us. And so I've been doing some of those things, but like, I've just not really put much intentional effort into actually growing the listening, because we're getting about 100 downloads a week now.
Which is great, dude. I'm telling you, that's a great foundation. You know what I'm saying? You're triggering algorithms. People are listening. So there's a couple of things I would tell everybody has a podcast to do. And I've just discovered some of this in the last year. Our podcast, I tell people when they ask me what I do for a living, the first words out of my mouth are, I'm a podcaster. There's a lot of things I do. I speak on big stages. I run seminars. I do webinars. I do email marketing. But at the heart of it all, I believe every opportunity we have ever had in our business has came through podcasting, because it's the most intimate, easy access, frictionless way to get in someone's world, right? Wow. Like, you are literally in a car with them, on a treadmill with them, at a ball game with them. You might be in the bathroom with them, listening to them, taking a shower. It don't matter. You know what I mean? So like, you're with people, and that's why I love it even more than YouTube or other things. But the podcast has to grow in a couple ways. The first thing you, of course, have to do is be consistent, prolific, and relentless with your own podcast. Like, you have to consistently release content, which you're doing. You have to prolifically share it yourself. Like, you've got to be sharing it, everywhere. Not everywhere every day. Like, we've got a new path that we're going to go where we're going to share it. I just met with my content manager yesterday. We're going to try to share it over the next 10 days when a podcast comes out on a different social media network. Kind of give one day, like LinkedIn gets one day, Twitter gets one day. Like, we're just going to make sure that every podcast gets shared. But also, we're going to relentlessly go back and share old content, right? This is something else that we've been doing. So we've got to do our part in our own social media ecosystem to get the word out, okay? You've got to relentlessly email your list. We're big believers in email every day. Email it Monday through Friday at least. And if you're really nervous about it, at least do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? But when you have a podcast come out, you email every email you got, and you tell them about the podcast so that you can get your people listening. I find so many podcasters don't email their list when they have a new show come out. They do like a monthly newsletter or something. I'm like, no, like, give it the boost the day it comes out. Like, tell people there's a new podcast, and then another day of the week, feature an old one that you can bring back to the surface. That's all valuable stuff. We sometimes just throw our content over in the pile, and we forget that we made it. How do you repurpose that? How do you use it? The next thing you're doing correctly is getting good guests on that maybe will share it. I have not found that that's the great way to grow your podcast. What I do find is that's a great way to get better guests. Okay. So like, once Auntie Ann, you can say to the next person you ask, I had Auntie Ann. Right. Mm-hmm. Once Pat Flynn, you can say you had Pat Flynn. Once you had Dean Graziosi, you can say, you just get to stack members until you get like some big guests. And what happens is people stop saying no. Like, we haven't had anybody say no to the podcast in forever. The other show I do, the Shane Sam show, because we just had such big guests. Like, why would you say no if all these other people did it? Right. Yeah. But the true growth strategy, I think the biggest opportunity in podcasting is OPA, baby. Other people's audiences. You've got to get people to be a guest on their show. And when you go on their show, you don't go for the home run. You don't go for the email. You don't go for the sale, which I've done all those things in the past. You tell people to come subscribe to your podcast, because podcast listeners listen to podcasts. So you say, hey, what's your website again? Is it trueconnection.com? Is that what it is? Or what is that?
TrueStrategy.info.
TrueStrategy.com. All right. So you would say at the end, they say, hey, give us a shout out. Be like, hey, follow me on Instagram at whatever. And I'd love for everybody here to listen to my podcast. You can find that at truestrategy.com/subscribe. Go subscribe to my podcast. We come out with podcasts every week. That's our new strategy for my guesting appearances. And at the beginning, don't say no to anybody that has a review on their podcast. Like, start get a procedure in place. We're actually going to put this in the community. The Blueprint's going to have our entire guesting procedure, how we get on shows. And it's not just because Shane knows people who podcast. I go out and I hump it too. Where, there's a lot of, I've done over 100, 200 shows, and everybody from the biggest of the biggest to the smallest of the small. I've soared with the eagles, I've slithered with the snakes, and I've been everywhere in between, brother. Right? And so we have a procedure to go out and reach out and find these guesting appearances. But anyone who has reviews has audience. So go and try to set a goal. Be like, Thursdays, I'm going to do 3 guest appearances. My team has to go get these opportunities by reaching out to people and saying, hey, maybe have someone on your show, so you can have them they'll have you on theirs. Like, you've got to have some reciprocity. Call in when you meet people like me and you got together. We're on a podcast together, right? Like, if you hear of anyone on the podcast, be like, we should have somebody, we should have each other on our show, trade off. And what happens is, you do 2 a week for a year, you've been on 100 shows, 100 other audiences have discovered your podcast. And guess what? They're all podcast listeners. So that's how you grow a podcast, is you get on other people's shows, you serve each other, you help them by promoting them and their podcast. Anytime you do a guest appearance, always share it on your social media and always email your list. It's like, serve those people. Like, they deserve access to your people, just like they're giving you access to them. Right.
Love that.
And, but that's it, man. You'll love this strategy too, dude, because it's just all about relationship and connection. I mean, man, that. when I want to get to know somebody, I just be like, dude, let's record a podcast together, because this is the funnest way you can hang out for an hour and you're just friends at the end of it,
That's true.
So that's how we're growing our podcast. I wish that I had discovered this methodology earlier of serving others through my podcast and then getting onto theirs as well, letting them serve me, accepting that gift of access to their audience. It's been a game changer, man. It's the reason me and you were sitting in that room together. Someone heard us on one of my podcast guest appearances, came back to one of my webinars, said it was the best webinar he'd ever seen, told the owner of our live event partners, Oxlos, and he reached out to me. That's the dominoes you can press when you start getting in front of other people's audiences on their podcast. Make sense?
Amazing. Absolutely. So one quick question. Why do you send them to your website instead of just saying, find us on your favorite podcast platform?
Here's why. Because one, if I have a redirect on a link, like I can get them there, and we don't have to say subscribe. If I go on, I went on Pat Flynn's. I've been on Pat Flynn's podcast 3 times. I actually just hosted the 500th episode. I was the guest host and got to interview Pat about his journey. This is a huge honor. I'm so thankful. If y'all check that out, please go listen to Smart Passive Income podcast 500. It was so fun and just a crazy opportunity. So I got to brag on Pat for a minute. But when I go on his show, I always do fliplifestyle.com/Pat. And that way there's a redirect that sets up that goes to my subscribe page. Because right now the podcasting world's becoming more crowded and competitive. Spotify actually is about to take Apple, I think, for podcast downloads. So they're really competing. So I don't know if you're a listener on Spotify or Apple or Stitcher or some other random Podbean or something. I don't know how you're listening to this show, right? But if I can get you to fliplifestyle.com/Pat, the guy you listen to, and that redirects to a subscribe page. Or if I just do one, sometimes we do one, we don't make a link for them because it's a smaller show and I don't really need the data. So I'll say fliplifestyle.com/subscribe. You go to a page, and on that page it says, hey, thanks for listening to us on, whatever show you found us on. Here's all the places that you can follow. Click any button below, subscribe, and leave us a review. And it has like an Apple button, a Spotify button, or whatever button. So I'm just trying to facilitate getting them to the app that they use.
It's great.
And I don't think I think you could go here if you're just saying, I just want to do Apple. You could totally make that redirect go straight to Apple and they could subscribe. Right. but you're just kind of leaving out the Spotify people and all these other. Now, I mean, most traffic comes through Apple Podcasts. I don't think that's a wrong decision. I just think it's a decision.
Yeah.
But for me, I want them to hit my website, my Facebook tracking pixel will catch them there. They'll see that they'll see where I'm at. And stuff like that. Another great way to grow it. We're about to do this too. We're making some deals right now. We're like, let's say there's a podcast that we maybe can't get on, or maybe my time is limited because I'm speaking. We're going to start reaching out and just paying, instead of running Facebook ads, I'm going to pay other podcasters to promote my podcast. So if I can find somebody who's got 200 reviews, it's an adjacent audience, I know them maybe, and be like, look, man, we're booked up. What if you do a 30-second ad read? I'll write it for you. I'll pay you X dollars, and you just do a 1-minute ad read on your front of your show. I'll become a sponsor of the show, but you're just promoting my podcast, because that's my ultimate mission, is to get people here. Because once they're here, they stay.
Right.
And I don't want the one-off go buy my thing. I want the Shane and you are now friends forever, and let's stay that way. So I'm trying to get them back to my show as much as possible.
Fantastic guidance. Well, you're one of those people as well that if someone doesn't like you, something is genuinely wrong with them.
About 10% of the time, somebody's tell that to Jocelyn. No, I'm just kidding, baby. If you listen to this later, because sometimes she don't like me, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's my fault most of the time.
Yeah, she's exempt from your charm.
She's exempt. Yeah, she knows. Yeah, right. She's been around it for so long. It's kind of like, yeah, I got you, brother. Figured out, right? All right, man. This has been an awesome conversation, dude. But let's leave off with a quick action step. Like, what do you think you're going to take from this and take action on maybe the next 24 hours to a week, man, to move this thing forward?
I'm going to go back through our emails and our marketing efforts to launch and make sure that it sounds more like I'm speaking one-to-one directly to our avatar. And then also I'm going to transition from or add to probably more of OPA, other people's audiences, instead of just, asking to be here. On top of that, going back to some of our guests that I've had here and asked to be on theirs.
Awesome, man. And if anybody does enjoy the Enneagram, where can they find you again? Where are you at? Give a domain name, and what's that at on that Instagram too? Yeah,
truestrategy.info. And then you can find me directly, Keanu_Trujillo on Instagram.
Awesome, man. Great conversation, brother. Thanks. Hey, listen, I'm always appreciative and I'm always thankful that our members are willing to come on here and hang out and just be open and vulnerable and transparent. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go. And I know this conversation helped somebody today, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for creating this, Shane.
All right, guys, that wraps up my interview with Keanu. Man, what a great dude. I have no doubt that he is going to go out and he is going to do some amazing things with his membership site. Keanu is all about building a community, and we are all about building communities over at flippedlifestyle.com. We would love to have you as a part of the Flipped Lifestyle community. We can help you start, build, and grow an online business. We can help you launch a membership site out into the world. We can help you come up with your idea, research it to make sure it can make money online. We can help you get your product ready and out to market, and then we can show you how to get it in front of more people. But we can't do that if you're not inside the community. So to learn more about the Flipped Lifestyle community, the Flipped Lifestyle Blueprint, and all the resources we have for family-focused entrepreneurs, make sure you head over to flippedlifestyle.com and check out all the great resources we have for you. I'm going to be wrapping up the show early today, wrapping up the podcast a little early. I actually had more podcasts to record today, but Jocelyn sent me a text, and she's not feeling good. She's actually a little sick. And I'm recording this on the first day of school. My kids are actually at school. Isaac went to middle school for the first time today. So that's a huge transition in his life. He's about to turn 13 years old, guys, in November. How in the world do I have a teenager? Isaac was 4 years old, I think, or 5 years old when we launched this podcast. And now he's going to be a teenager, and he's almost bigger than me. And Anna Jo is 10, man. She went to 5th grade today. So Jocelyn's down for the count. So that means Daddy's got to clear the schedule and go pick up the kids from school here at lunchtime. But man, when stuff happens like this, I always tell myself, I get to be a dad. I get to be a husband. I get to support my wife. She gets to support me through sickness and in health, man. That's what it's all about. And I just feel so blessed that I'm a podcaster. I feel so blessed that I lead an online community. I'm so blessed that I have an online business, a location-independent business. I have total control of my schedule. I can cancel things if I want. I have total control of my life. That's what's possible when you do what we do. That's what's possible when you do what Keanu is doing. That's what's possible when you take your next step inside the Flipped Lifestyle community. That's the freedom and hope we want you to have for you and your family's future. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for this week. Man, if you love the Flipped Lifestyle podcast, do me a favor. Go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. I read every single one of those reviews. They help us get our message of hope and peace and family and business and entrepreneurship out into the world. And we are just so thankful when you do that. So if you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, stop what you're doing as soon as you get done listening, and please go leave us a 5-star review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. That helps us get up in the rankings as well. Also, don't forget, I do have a second podcast where I interview some of the world's leading entrepreneurs, experts, and authors. It's called The Shane Sam Show. So make sure you're subscribed to The Shane Sam Show as well. That was a little bit of a tongue twister. Subscribe to The Shane Sam Show. But make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you listen to that. I've interviewed amazing experts like Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Dean Graziosi, and a host of other amazing people. My goal is to bring amazing access to experts to you every single week over on The Shane Sam Show. We have a lot of fun, and it's not your normal entrepreneur interview. I don't let them off the hook, man. We go down the rabbit hole, and we get the real good stuff on The Shane Sam Show. So make sure you check that out, subscribe to that, leave that a review as well. That's all the time I've got for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, get out there, take action, and do whatever it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Well, I appreciate your help, brother. Like I said, you really were like the final nail. That was like, this was the missing piece. I mean it. I promote you. I will be a Flipped Lifestyle evangelist till the day I die.
Dude,
so.
I want to watch you succeed. That's the best thing. The best thing you can do for me is to win. And I'll just keep cheering you on so you can win. So,
well, you said something and it showed your heart. I'll leave you with this. You said at the table with Joe Johnson, and you are a man of great stature yourself. But, with Joe Johnson, you said, I just really hope I can make him proud. Because he allowed this opportunity for me. And you didn't have to say that. It was just us. And so, I'll say in the same way, I really hope I can make you proud. I can say that I was a flipped lifestyle, a flipped lifestyle product. So I appreciate you, brother. I can't wait to spend more time together.